What's up, guys? Welcome back. Kellen here with Droid Life, and we're taking a look today at HTC's U Ultra. So this is a flagship phone that was announced by HTC back in January, and it's now available here in March to buy. Assuming you've got loads of cash to spend, don't need a carrier middleman to aid in the process, or you're not really concerned about what's coming next from other manufacturers like Samsung and even HTC for the most part. Now, I know that's me taking some subtle jabs here at HTC's sale process, or I guess sales setup with the U Ultra, but I feel like that's a big part of the story. And that's a big part of the story because this is actually a pretty good phone. I'm just worried that it's not going to be accessible to most people since you can only buy it from HTC's store. Anyways, let's talk a lot about that. This is our review of the HTC U Ultra. So what do you get with the HTC U Ultra? Well, first of all, it costs $749 if you buy it from htc.com in the US. You'll likely find it for cheaper at places like eBay, but that's the official sales channel in the US. That's right, no carriers are selling this phone. Plus, it's a GSM-only phone that only works on AT&T and T-Mobile, so keep that in mind. You do get a top-tier set of specs, though, for that price. The HTC U Ultra features a 5.7-inch Quad HD LCD display with secondary ticker, all of which is covered in Gorilla Glass 5. You get 64 gig storage out of the box with SD card support, 4 gig RAM, 3000 milliamp hour embedded battery with quick charge, USB Type-C port, a fingerprint reader, HTC Boom Sound with dual external speakers, a Snapdragon 821, which is the same that's in the LG G6, a 12 megapixel Ultra Pixel 2 camera at f1.8, 16 megapixel front camera, and Android 7.0 Nougat with HTC Sense on top. So it really is all there for the most part. As for design, you get a metal frame with molded glass on the front and back that appears almost as a liquid metal that is pretty stunning to look at. The colors available here in the US are black, white, and this blue here, though there is a pink model available internationally. In the box, HTC is including some extra goodies like this clear case and HTC U Sonic earbuds that create profiles of your ear by listening to them. You'll find a Type-C cable too that's fairly long, as well as a quick charge adapter and a cleaning cloth, which, trust me, you'll most definitely need with black or blue models. Alright, so what's good and bad about the HTC U Ultra? Well, let's start with the good stuff, which there happens to be plenty of. I'm talking about things like the QHD LCD display, HTC's best camera to date, a design that is growing on me each day, and software that, even as dated as it's starting to look, is still one of the better skins on Android. About that display though, this is a really good LCD display. Now, I don't typically praise many LCD displays and prefer AMOLEDs, but HTC has done this one right. It's super clean, super clear, detailed at Quad HD resolution, and it appears so close to the top of the glass as you're touching it. The viewing angles are solid, you can adjust the color temperature, though I left it where HTC tuned it, and even jump into a night mode to take some strain off of the eyes. I do have some complaints about touch responsiveness, but I'll save that for a little bit later. On another positive note, you've got to give it up to HTC for the speaker setup here. Listen to this for a second. You get Boom Sound integrated, but you also get two speakers again, one tweeter and one woofer. The external audio here just isn't matched really by anyone. The speakers are loud enough and good enough that you could probably skip the Bluetooth speaker at the party and just use this phone alone. The 12 megapixel Ultra Pixel 2 camera on the U Ultra is also very good. I was impressed with last year's HTC 10 camera, but I'm thinking this guy tops it. The camera at f1.8 and with optical image stabilization fires up fairly quickly and finds the object you want even faster. I mention that because I feel like HTC's cameras in the past often struggle with autofocus, but that hasn't been an issue for me with this phone. You can fire off shots in a hurry, capture great depth, the contrast is on point, and it's even solid indoors when lighting can be spotty. Here, take a look at some of these shots. Outside of just regular auto shooting, you've also got panorama, Zoe, and hyperlapse modes, plus 4K video, a pro mode, and slow motion shooting. So it's definitely a fully featured smartphone camera that isn't disappointing me. As for the software, I mentioned that it's a solid skin on top of Android 7.0 Nougat. Look, I'm not a huge HTC Sense fan, it's just that it's been cleaned up enough in recent years that there isn't much to dislike. You've got Blink Feed for simple news needs, a whole bunch of personalization controls including themes, there are gestures for the lock screen that are useful and will get you into the camera or out of the lock screen in a hurry, plus the quick settings menu isn't going to frustrate you. HTC treats notifications properly and the system settings won't overwhelm even if they are out of order when compared to other Android phones. There isn't a ton of stuff to mess with in this version of Sense, which I do appreciate. You have a handful of items you can customize. Google Assistant is there now too, and because the phone is unlocked and without carrier interference, HTC will probably be able to update it quicker than most other phones. The phone is running Android 7.0 right now, but I wouldn't be surprised to see it get 7.1 pretty quickly. Although maybe that's wishful thinking since this phone in particular is still back on January's security patch, so who knows. Finally, you just can't beat HTC's uh-oh protection that is offered on the phones they sell from their own online store. At no extra cost, HTC can get you a free replacement from a broken screen or water damage within the first 12 months and a 30-day no questions asked returns. So that means within the first year, if you drop your U Ultra and the screen breaks or the lack of water resistance doesn't hold up in the bath, they'll fix you right up for free. That's a big deal and no one else in the game seems to want to offer something similar. With the good out of the way, it's now time to dive into the ugly side of the HTC U Ultra, which I'm sad to report is just as packed. I found this phone to have enough drawbacks that it's going to be a hard one to recommend, even with the great camera, display, and speakers I just talked about. For one, this phone is enormous. It has a 5.7-inch Quad HD display with secondary ticker, so I get why it's large. It's large in the same way that the LG V20 was large, although it does manage to be a full 3 millimeters taller and another couple wider than even that phone. But really the biggest problem for the U Ultra is the fact that this little phone called the LG G6 exists, and it too sports a 5.7-inch Quad HD display, yet comes in a much more manageable package. And that's sort of what the future is going to hold, I think, for smartphones, so the U Ultra just seems like it's a step behind already. The U Ultra is also slippery at times, the secondary display is useless because it's impossible to ever reach, single-handed use is basically not worth the struggle, and good luck ever fitting this thing in a front jean pocket. Yes, it's true, I can't stand oversized phones like this and complain about them often, but this takes the size up another notch even over the V20, which is a scary thing that I'll just never understand. In related non-user friendly news, this phone doesn't have a headphone jack. Now, I know that everyone in the industry has courage these days and thinks we want a future filled with wireless or USB Type-C headphones, but I don't think any of them have spoken to actual consumers, including HTC now. So yeah, the phone comes with HTC's own U-Sonic earbuds and they're fine. They tune you to your ear and sound good enough for a pair of included buds. But you know what really irks me here? HTC didn't even include a USB Type-C to 3.5mm adapter. In other words, if you don't want to use HTC's included earbuds, you can't even use your own. Unless you try and find a third-party adapter that may or may not work and will run you another $10 to $20 outside of the $750 you just spent. Think about that for a second. Battery life is another area that worries me. With a smallish 3000 mAh battery in a phone this large with a Quad HD display, you may struggle to get through most days with heavy use. My usage showed pretty mixed results. On some days I was 8 to 10 hours in with a couple of hours of screen on time and worrying about whether or not I'd make it to 9 p.m. Then other days I'd have equal on time and 40% left at 10 p.m. I can't say why my battery tests were all over, but that's not necessarily a good sign of what may come. Some other things that have bothered me during the past week are things like the button setup and touch responsiveness. The button setup in particular isn't my favorite anyway because it's a combination of capacitive touch home button that doubles as a fingerprint reader sandwiched between a capacitive back and app switcher. While I can normally live with buttons like these, as I do often on Samsung phones, HTC's buttons just aren't placed well. Instead of being centered in the bottom chin of the phone, HTC placed them as close to the bottom of the phone as they should, so you constantly tap above the back button or home button. That means you are tapping multiple times throughout a day without anything happening, so you're forced to tap, tap, tap again. It's just frustrating, yet this isn't new to HTC. The HTC 10 was the same exact way. As for the touch responsiveness, I actually have to give credit to a commenter in one of our HTC U Ultra tips videos where they point out the fact that the screen just wouldn't react to touches that I kept making. I hadn't necessarily noticed it right away, but now I can't go 5 minutes without recognizing the fact that I've touched something and the phone just doesn't react. I'm not sure if there's a problem with the display or the software, but HTC needs to clean this up. You also may want to opt for that case that's in the box. I've been using this phone for a week or so without one, and the scratches are noticeable already. I can't imagine what this phone will look like in a month or even 6 months, let alone a year. But really, the biggest problem with the HTC U Ultra is a combination of the price, its availability, and the lack of connectivity in the US. At $749, it's trying to compete with the LG G6 and whatever Samsung is about to unveil. And look, I'm sorry, but it's just not even better than Google's Pixel phones from last year. So competing at this price point is going to be tough. Not only that, but you can only buy this phone on HTC's site and use it on T-Mobile or AT&T's networks. Verizon and Sprint customers are just out of luck, as are those who typically buy phones with subsidies or at cheap monthly payment plans. It's tough to say why HTC hasn't pushed this phone onto carriers or if carriers simply passed, but there sure won't be many eyeballs on it if the only place to find it is HTC's lonely online shop. Should you buy the HTC U Ultra? I don't really think so, no. Unless you're an HTC super fan, have an unlimited budget, want UO protection, or only need connectivity on T-Mobile and AT&T, then sure, go ahead. But if you were hoping that HTC really knocked this one out of the park and is offering something truly unique with this U line, I just don't think you're going to find that here, especially when you consider the LG G6 is coming really soon. The Galaxy S8 is right around the corner, and HTC maybe even has another phone on the horizon in the near future with upgraded specs. So look, you can get phones with an equal or better display, an equal or better camera. They're available at your local wireless carrier, and of course, they're probably priced much more reasonably.